back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to be building a Spanish mission. So in the past, I had built a large church, and that's a great piece of terrain for a lot of different things, but I wanted something even more versatile. So I was thinking something a little bit smaller, so maybe a chapel or a Spanish mission. So I kind of also wanted to make it kind of generic, so maybe I could use it for something else. So let's take a look at the finished product, and I'll tell you what I mean. So here's the finished product. And you can see it's got the shape of a Spanish mission. But the back of it's a little different. It's got kind of a Tudor style a little bit to it. So it kind of has a variations to it. So what I was thinking, I did put a cross on the top. There's no bell in it, but it looks like it could have one, right? But look, maybe it could be, maybe it's a storage area. Maybe it's a garrison in a fort. Like a warehouse off the docks, or maybe it's even a school. It could be all sorts of different things other than just like a Spanish mission. So I really wanted to make it very generic, but looks like a church. So let's take a look at the inside. I also wanted to make it very playable. I'm making a lot of my terrain now playable throughout the piece, so you can play inside of it and on the outside of it. So that's we did a little bit of interior designing here. And then the roof was kind of tricky. Usually I have a post in here, and that supports the rooftop. So I kind of had to make this a little bit of a different design to fit on here and not sink in. But not have to put that post in. Mainly because it's a smaller piece, and it's hard to paint in there when you have that post in there. I guess I could have painted it first, but still, even putting your minis in there, it's annoying having that little post in the middle. So I wanted to remove that in this piece. All right, so that's what we're building in today's episode. So before we get down there, just a quick update on the global campaign. Remember last week was Tiny Wars. This week is support your merchant. So support your local merchant. So head down there, play a game at your favorite game store, your shop, or maybe a club, and you earn extra points for doing that. But if you don't have that in your area, just keep playing your regular games, and you still get single points for those. So just don't stop playing Blood and Plunder just because we don't have a local game store. Just keep on playing and still earning points for the English faction, right? All right. If everybody likes what we're doing here in the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I start these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table, let's start painting, and let's start crafting. Okay, I started this project off with a piece of insulation foam, just really kind of planning it out. I knew I had to make a large stone facing on it. So I just took some minis, measured out the door entranceway that I wanted to make here. I measured out exactly the height that I wanted it to be. So this is somewhat tricky, just to kind of make it a little bit more oversized than the rest of the building. So then I cut it out. Right here I've only cut the doorway out, but I do plan on cutting those top two pieces. Always going back, referring to my miniature, making sure that I'm staying within the size I want it to be at. And then I started using a pencil here to kind of carve some texture into it. And that's the hobby knife that I use to cut these out. Now, as far as working with the pencil, I had to sand this piece. So if you get insulation foam, it has a coating on it. You can get foam that doesn't have that, and it's much easier to carve into. This one's a little trickier. So a good way to get underneath that is to sand it off. So then I thought the idea of maybe I'll go a little step further and stick it in my coffee tin and shake it up. So this had an interesting result. I ended up, I wasn't thinking very well. I should have probably done it before I cut the holes out on it, and I broke it all up. But this actually ended up being a happy accident because I was able to just glue it together, and it looks like cracks and stuff. So I actually kind of liked the end result of that accident. sometimes we make mistakes and they end up being okay. So, so once I've completed tracing some of the bricks, I kind of go back and forth here. I was out framing out the doorway here with some balsa wood. There's some flat balsa wood that I got from Amazon. And I glued that onto, that's kind of just where the doorway's going to be. Then I added a few bricks as some decorative ledges on there. So the front is not completely flat because it's I'm doing it in one piece, which I usually don't. I usually use bricks. All right, so then I wanted to work on the doorway. So I bought this stuff at clearance on Michael's. It's kind of some decorative jewelry stuff. But I thought if I clip parts of that out, it would be really cool decorative hinges on my doors. So it also gives my building kind of a little bit of a fantasy feel to it too, as well. So maybe it could be used for Dungeons and Dragons now, and Warhammer or something else, right? So I wanted to add a little bit extra in there. So this is after I've carved it out with a pencil. You can see how much easier it is to carve once you sand it and shook it up in those rocks. It actually made a huge difference. It was much easier to carve into. So this is after I've added those little pieces. And I just snipped that loop, just chunks of it off. And I have they're kind of like bolts as a handle. Gears, sorry. They're like little gears. Alright, so then I wanted to build the rest of the building. So I figured I was going to do that in dollar store foam board. Again, just kind of measured it all out. So right where the bottom is where that, I didn't really think that out very well. I left the framing on there. I ended up just cutting out 2 little squares at the end of the bottom piece, and it slid in. It actually locked in better that way, which isn't a bad thing. Seems like I've made quite a few errors on this one, but they ended up being happy mistakes, though, so that's okay. It's really when you're kind of just building and you run across things. They're just challenges. Like I don't have a blueprint for this thing, so I'm just kind of building it as I go. Would make sense to me. So just showing you to cut some windows out of there, and then I'm going to texturalize these pieces with a foam ball. I think I have off camera. There it is. And I took the paper off. I ended up taking the paper off on all the sides except for the bottom where I'm going to glue the popsicle sticks on for the flooring. I left that paper on that one piece. Otherwise, everything else was peeled off. So I'm going to spend a little time more on the framing of the windows. Somebody in the community had asked if I slowed it down a little bit just to take a look a little bit further. So that's a coffee stir stick, and that's some balsa wood. So I put 2 pieces of balsa wood on either side, and got that stir stick on the top and bottom. And that's kind of your framed out window. I used to cut the windows out, but I find it better just to frame it out with balsa wood instead. You get a much more realistic looking window. So then that is also just a piece of matchstick on the top as a ledge on the top of it. And those are just matchsticks. And I do one way and one the other. And that's pretty much it. That's your window. Looks pretty good. Now, if you wanted to put glass in there, you could use that plastic that I've used in previous episodes. Plastic from packages, clear plastic. You could stick that in before you put the second frame in, and you can put some glass in that window if you wanted to as well. All right, just showing you I glued all the walls on there. Once I've decorated those side walls with the windows. I just glued it all together with hot glue. I did it faster. At this stage, it's harder to do with white glue and keep it in place. So then, as I usually do in most of my buildings, I add posts to the corners of the walls. This has a lot of support. Those are just pieces of balsa wood. And then I'm going to put the planks on there. So you can see I use my hobby knife to texturize the popsicle sticks and various different shapes and sizes. And I plan on gluing that on the bottom there to create a nice wooden planked floor. All right, so this is after I've added everything in there. You can see just a note on the edges. I used a coffee stir stick, just to kind of edge those out. But by the entranceway, I did use a little 2 matchsticks. So you got it nice and framed out, nice to flooring. The interior looks pretty good. And now we're going to move to making some bricks. So I do want to add a brick detail to the outside. And as I mentioned in the intro, the back of the building is kind of more of a Tudor style feel to it. Half stone, half just kind of like a mortared wall. So we're just going to cut those up. You've seen me do these bricks before, so we're not going to talk about them too much. This is for the shingles. I did cut little skinny strips and then use this my little texturizing tool here, just a cleaning tool from Home Depot. And I carved that wood texture in there. Then I cut them in half into skinnier strips and then cut them in little bits for my shingles. Now, when I put my shingles on there, I did all sorts of different sizes. I kind of just looked like it's made out of scrap wood that just threw on top. I really wanted to have a real rustic feel to it. So I'll just show you use the tacky glue as usual. This is, I just started the first side, and I plan on going all the way around. I made a little bit of a ledge on the top there, and then put the bricks underneath. And just going to go around the building and complete it that way. So now I want to add those Tudor-style details. These are matchsticks. No, sorry, I keep calling them matchsticks. Coffee stir sticks. And put some texture in them. And then just kind of snip them and custom put them in place there. You could make it with any pattern you want. I kind of just went this classic style pattern, but there's other ones you could do. Or you could not even put them on there if you want. But I would still put them on the edges. It adds support to the edge of the building when you add stir sticks onto the corners. All right, so now let's address the roof. So this is two pieces of this dollar store foam board here, and I just kind of, as you can see, I cut a bit of an angle on one of them and on the two edges. And I made it a little bit wider than the roof that it's sitting on. So it kind of overlaps a bit, and it sits nice on there. Now we're planning on, I'm going to put a front on there so it doesn't slide off, but we'll get to that in a minute. Just showing you, I'm going to glue all these lovely little shingles that we cut out onto the top here. So there's that front I talked about, making a kind of a ledge on the front of the roof. Then I'll kind of lock it in place, and it kind of hides any gaps between the roof and the bottom. And then I added that piece of balsa wood in the middle of it, and that's so when you pull it forward, it doesn't slide off. And this is also another piece I glued to the top, as I like to put a little handle on the top of the roof. And it also covers where the two shingles meet at the peak. And you got a little usable piece. So that's all our pieces are pretty well fabricated here. We got our roof done, we got our door done, and we got our base done. So I kind of separated them all so I could just paint them individually. It's a lot easier to paint them that way. So we're going to our black satin craft paint by Folk Art, and I'm going to cover everything up. Use my usual brush that I paint everything with. So this is after we've completed our black coat. Everything's been covered. Again, that black paint does make a good, reinforces everything and kind of just makes everything snug. So nothing's loose in here. So, I like to be pretty harsh with my dry brushing and my painting. So moving on to real brown, and again, these are the standard colors I usually use for basing most of my terrain. So this is after we've added the real brown, just kind of giving you a look at what I covered. Pretty well everything. At these early stages, we're just adding layers onto layers. And I kind of made it brighter in the center, just like I would do with the docks and stuff, just to have a weathered look in the middle of the floor down there. So just take a look at that a little further. So now we're moving on to bark brown. This is a lighter brown, and we're going to cover all these pieces as well. So we're not covering it completely. Remember, we're just kind of tapping it. Refer to, my ship video. There's lots of videos in the past where I've actually painted the whole thing on camera. And then we've covered everything with the bark brown now. And again, lightening the center of that floor. And now I'm starting to hit those walls up a little bit. And so we're doing just fine here. So now we're moving on to the Pueblo. It's kind of an orange color. And I'm really going to highlight some areas on here. Now, I only put a little bit on the floor. I can say no, I didn't put any on there, but I put a tad. Mostly, I want to add a yellow ochre to that floor. So this is after I've added the Pueblo. You can see we just kind of highlight it. I kind of made it weathered in the center of the door, a little bit lighter. And you can just see we just highlighted everything on here. These are just good undertones to put down first before you start painting everything else. So now I'm going to switch to my Army Painter dry brush, and I'm going to go to camel. This is kind of the early stages of my stonework. I usually use this craft paint, and I want to weather the flooring on the bottom, and I'm going to hit these stone walls, bottom here, anything that's stone really, and we're gonna hit that area with that camel, and even going to weather the door a little bit. So this is after I've hit all those areas. You can see the camel adds a nice little stone look to it already. We're going to add more colors, but it adds a lot. And that kind of dry brush that door, added a little bit of, made it dull more, essentially. Looks a little more dusty and grimy, which I like. So now I move to the yellow ochre. We're going to hit some on the door there. We're going to do the flooring. Now we're going to move to the stone colors. So desert yellow, skeleton bone, necrotic flesh, and mummy robe. So those are colors I usually use for my stonework, and I'm just kind of pointing those out again. I mentioned on virtually every video that has stone in it. Those are the colors I use. And then there's a contrast skeleton horde I added on there, and Ajax Earth Shader. So those are the colors I also add on to the stones as well. So I know we're not showing a lot of the painting part of it, my techniques. We're just showing you the colors that I'm using and the stage I'm doing it in. I think I'll have a future video where I spend more time on showing how to weather wood. I think that that's something that might be worthwhile doing a separate video, and just kind of build a little wooden wall and show you how to paint a weathered look to it. All right, so now we're going to dress the planks on the sides of the walls and the posts inside. And we're going to do all sorts of different colors. Agrax Earth Shader again, some matte black. I'm going to use that speed paint, dark wood. Another speed paint, hardened leather. Grim black is another speed paint. Necromancer cloak. And uniform gray. So uniform gray and necromancer cloak, I kind of put down on there first. Some grays and lighter undertones before I hit those contrast paints on there. So this is after I've added all those colors, and now we're moving to the final stages. So I'm going to use raw sienna. I've never used that color before. Some yellow ochre, gunmetal for the hinges, some more Army Painter speed paints, mostly blacks, and of course the greens, commando green and jungle green, to add like a little bit of foliage to it. All right, we got some pirates here raiding this Spanish town. Looks like William Kidd. And there's that crane that you can win for playing the most games in your local club. So this would be a good week to punch in a lot of games to further yourself to potentially winning that. So we go down the pathway here. We got Juan Corso coming down here to defend the docks. And here's the Spanish mission. All completed. I added a little bit of tufts on here. I didn't put that in the video, but you can see I put a little bit of grass on the roof just to add a little bit extra, make it look a little more aged. Looks like we got some longboats dropping off some freebooters and some sea dogs coming up the side here, and marines to attack the Spanish mission from this side. So let's take a good look around it. I'm really happy how this project came out. I'm really happy with the way it finished off. Looks real good. Let's take one more look on the inside too as well. Just see how that plays out. Real easy to put the roof on and off. I'm really happy with the mechanics of that. It fits on there nice. All right, that's a wrap on this project. I really hope you guys like this, and thank you so much for tuning in and watching. And I will see you in the next one.